Hello, David here, coming to you live as I do for yet another podcast on this amazing program or platform. In fact, we are on different platforms now that you can tune in on and catch up with us to see what is going on in the year 24 plenty as we bring answers, skills, and solutions to getting you all the way to the top. Tonight, I will be discussing the art of authenticity. And whatever you do, you want to settle down and get a pencil, pen and paper, whatever you do, or if you just want to listen and take it all in, please go ahead and do that. Welcome to this podcast. This is going to be good. I'm going to dive straight into it and hopefully give understanding and help somebody out there to get to the very top of your game, whatever industry you are in. So let's kick it off by asking a very simple question. What is authenticity, if I can pronounce that correctly? What is authenticity? Authenticity can be described as being genuine, being real, or being true to yourself, regardless of the changing world. We live in a world that is ever so dynamic and everything is changing every day. And yet authenticity means that you remain constant, you remain genuine, you remain real, and your true self, regardless of all the things that are happening around you, regardless of any fears around you. And sometimes life can be riddled with fear from almost every corner. So to be authentic means to be your true self, your genuine self in all seasons. Whether it is day or night, you remain exactly the same. And that is my definition or paraphrase definition of what it means to be authentic. And so if that's what it means to be authentic, why is it important to be authentic? Why is it important that we are talking about this tonight? In many places in the world, depending on what area you're in, somebody tries to sell you a piece of equipment. One of the biggest questions you'll be asking is it authentic? That means, is it the real deal? Or is it a fake? Or is it an imitation? And so you don't want to spend quality time or your money and value on things that are not authentic. In the same way, when it comes to human currency, people value authenticity. And so they will give their time and pay money for something that is real and genuine. But in this case, we're not talking about a product. We're not talking about an eat or a piece of material out there. We're talking about you, your life. How do you increase your value by using authenticity? Basically, how do you portray yourself or present yourself as the authentic, the real deal, the true self that you are, so people can buy into who you are? Whether you're leading a business, a company, or whether you're managing a team, this quality will take you a long way to winning in life. So let's have a look at how we can enact that or enforce that in your life. How do you become more authentic, or how can you live an authentic life? I have only a few points for you tonight, and then we will leave it at that for another podcast for another day. We want to keep this nice and punchy. So let's go to the second point that I have for you tonight, which is authenticity and the human touch. So if you want to be authentic, one of the things you're going to have to master is the human touch. What do I mean by that? People want to know that they can trust you. People want to know that you are the real deal, that they can relate to you. And so if you want to be authentic, you're going to have to open or crack a little window, maybe not completely open the whole door wide, but to some extent, you're going to have to share a little bit of who you are. Who are you? You have to present yourself in a way that even though you haven't given all of yourself to people in terms of revealing exactly who you are, because nobody does that anyway, but there's got to be an aspect of you that you get to share with those that you're leading or whatever area you're in. If you want to really be impactful and authentic, people are going to have to at least be able to say they know you. Okay. You want to present yourself in a way that people feel like they know a piece of you, or they know you. Then that way you can really maximize your authenticity. There are lots of leaders in time past who have managed to do this really well, where you have shared a story of your life. Maybe you're running for office and sharing a little bit of your human story, that human touch, where people get to know a little bit about your family, a little bit about your background, maybe your education. It kind of makes them feel like they're a part of you, a part of your life, and that they do know you. So it goes a long way. The human touch, I put it right at the top because it goes a long way to be able to practice authenticity in everyday living, whether you're in the world of business, the corporate world, or your personal life. Now, your authenticity is tied to your strengths, it is tied to your weaknesses, it is tied to your passions, and it is also tied to your personality. And so when you present yourself with the human touch, that means you are presenting yourself with your weaknesses. Like I said, not all of it, because you might chase people away, but there's got to be a level of vulnerability that increases how authentic you are. At the same time, you can't just portray weakness. Your strengths are a part of this human touch. You've got to show your strengths, and they must be seen as qualities that you carry. It is all a part of your being authentic. And the other aspect is that you're going to have to show your passions. If you're not passionate about something that you want people to buy into, most likely they will not, because you have to be the first one to fully believe in that dream or vision before somebody else can. And ultimately, your personality encompasses how you come across as whether authentic or unauthentic or not genuine, or if you like, a fake. Okay, so those four pillars, you gotta be able to show in terms of presenting your human side. You gotta show your strengths, your weaknesses. At the same time, you gotta show your passion, and then you gotta portray your personality in a way that is measured, and it goes a long way to presenting you as authentic. Now, the third aspect of today's talk that I want to bring into the picture is your value system. And so if you want to be authentic, you're going to have to have certain key or authenticity values. And I've listed about 5 of them for you today. And if you can take them down, maybe you already possess all of them. Maybe you can work on some of them so you can have them. But in order for you to truly be authentic, you're going to have certain values and a value system that gives you that ability to be real and genuine regardless of what is happening around you. Value number 1 for your authenticity is that you're going to have courage. Value number 1, you're going to have courage. In other words, have the courage to be able to be the right thing and do the right thing regardless of what is going on around you. So courage. Number 2, you're going to have self-awareness. You must know who you are. You must be aware of your own personality. Other people will perceive you a certain way, but most importantly, how you see yourself matters even more than how people perceive you or how people see you. Number 3, you're going to have unbiased processing, the ability to process information and situations and scenarios without bias. In other words, you don't have preconceived ideas about everything, because it limits you. It stops you from really seeing the big picture and understanding what is going on in the moment. And so that unbiased consciousness or processing of situations in your life will go a long way to validate authenticity in your life. Number 4, you're going to have balanced transparency. Remember, I talked about the human touch, where you get to show who you really are without really giving away everything, but showing who you are to a large extent, where people begin to feel like they really know you and that they can trust you. And so this kind of transparency obviously must be measured. It must be transparent, but it must be measured. It must be balanced. In other words, you will share portions and aspects of your life, but measured. But make sure you're transparent. Don't always be a closed book. Don't always be evasive. There's some people who, if you ask them a question, they'll never give you a straightforward answer. These people, it's very hard to trust people like this. So you must be a kind of person that is able to talk about things with a transparency that breeds trust. And this will go a long way to create authenticity in your life. Let me give you one more on this point, which is a balance, finding a balance between value and behavior. So remember, we talked about values. Do you have personal values? You must have personal values. Now, when you have these personal values, you must then balance these values with your behavior. And by behavior, I mean your character, who you naturally are. When people say, oh, be authentic, be genuine, what they really are saying is be your true self, just act the way you feel and anyhow. But you must find the balance between just doing how you feel or what you feel like doing at the same time while you keep your values, because your values must balance out your natural inclination to do certain things and act a certain way. And so the fifth point on the key authenticity values is that you must find or strike a balance between your values and your natural inclination or your behaviors, how you naturally act in any situation while you are trying to be your true self, because we will see why that is important. Okay, so managing yourself in this sense becomes a key ingredient to achieving great success. You must manage yourself in order to achieve great success in life. And here's a little test, if you like, that might help you check your authenticity. Let me give you a little test. If you have pen and paper, you can make a note of this little test to help you manage your authenticity. So number one, what are my personal, ask yourself these 7 questions I've put down. Now, question number 1, what are my personal values? What are my personal values? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. Do you actually have any? If you don't have any, you better sit down and start thinking about that. So number 1, ask yourself, what are your personal values? Number 2, ask yourself, what are your strengths? So ask yourself, this is a personal question. You're having a conversation with yourself to figure out how to be authentic and discover your authentic self. What are my personal values? I'm making it personal to myself, but make sure you're asking these questions to yourself. Number 2, what are my strengths? And number 3 naturally follows, what are my weaknesses? You must understand, other people will pick up your weaknesses, of course, but the most important person to identify your strengths and weaknesses is you. So ask yourself, what are your weaknesses, or what are my weaknesses if you're talking to yourself like I am? Number 4, ask yourself, where are you at your very best? Some of you are at your best first thing in the morning. Some people are at their best at night. Some people are at their best midday. So ask yourself, when am I at my best? And in what environment am I at my best? These questions will ultimately help you get to the end of to a place where you can be your real and true self and maximize your potential and get to the very top of your game. Where am I? Number 4. Number 5, I believe, my 5th question you need to ask yourself as a test for authenticity is, what do I bring to the table? So what qualities, what characteristics do I possess? So all these questions I'm asking you would apply to any area of your life. If you're in a company, ask is, what can I bring to the corporation, to the business? What can I bring to the family? What can I bring to the ministry? Regardless of what area it is, you can ask these questions in any situation, and they will tell you whether you're being authentic or not in that particular situation. So number 5, what can you bring to the table? Number 6, ask yourself honestly and genuinely and without any bias, where do you feel most at home? In what environment, with what kind of people, in what situations do you feel most at home, where you feel like you belong? This is where you belong. And one more, number 7, for your test is, ask yourself, do you ever feel the need to lie in order to fit in? Do you ever feel the need to lie in order to fit in? And by the way, just to paraphrase, to break this down a little bit more, in terms of feeling the need to lie in order to fit in, every time or anytime you ever feel like you have to fib a little bit or embellish a little bit or go color outside the lines a little bit in order to fit in, ask yourself why. And that's just a bonus question. We finished at 7. Ask yourself why, if you ever feel the need to lie. But as a part of number 7, ask yourself, why? Why would you feel like that? Why do you feel the need to fit in with that particular group? Why do you feel the need to say something that you are not, or something that hasn't happened, in order for them to accept you? Why is it that you're not confident in presenting your true self, your authentic self? So this is a very good test for you to have and have a look at. And I'm going to move right on to our next point so we can maximize the time and keep this nice and short. Sorry, I think I'm on number 4. I'm going to have 5 points for you today. We are on number 4 now. Number 4, I'm calling it authenticity and time management. When you realize who you really are or discover your true self, and you become confident and comfortable in being your true self, this is what's going to happen to you. Something amazing. One of the most important things you can ever do in your life in order to be successful is learning to manage your time. Time is one of the greatest commodities that God has ever given us. As a matter of fact, that's all we have. When you run out of time, no matter how gifted or talented you are, you cannot do anything. And by that I mean, when you go home to be with the Lord, your time is up. And so time is really critical. So when you have it, which you're listening to me right now, that means you still have that time. Learning and understanding how to use your time will be the difference between success and failure. So how does authenticity come into play here? When you are your authentic self, you will only allot your time to things that matter. When you discover your authentic self, all of a sudden you will no longer waste time on details or little things that don't really count. You will learn to understand prioritizing. You will pick up priority metrics and priority metrics or programs that, like I do, I use a few of them in order to prioritize my life. Otherwise, you will find yourself doing a lot of things and not really achieving anything because you don't really know who your true self is. You're trying to fit in. You're trying to do everything in order to satisfy whatever it is. But when you discover your authentic self, all of a sudden, this will generate in you the ability to stop mistaking movement for achievement. When you are authentic, you will no longer mistake movement for achievement. You will no longer be just a busybody doing this and this and this and this and that, but none of it really matters. Make sure you line up your priorities so that I use the Eisenhower priority metrics for my personal life, and I use other priority markers for different aspects of my life. Because like you, I have a lot of things to do. Like you have a lot of things to do. I have a lot of things to do. And the only way to stay on top of your game and really get the things done, I used to be like many people. I'd write down a long list of things that I want to do, and that long list sometimes can be overwhelming. And there is always the temptation to tackle the easy things first. Oh, okay, let me get that out of the way because it's only small. By the end of the day, you realize that you've done a lot of irrelevant, non-important things, but you haven't really achieved what really matters because it was too difficult. So you kept on procrastinating the most important things. I say to you, tackle the most difficult thing first. Tackle the most important thing first. Put everything into a matrix. Find out what is most important and what needs to be done right now. Whether it is hard or easy, get it done. And that is how you win in life. And so when you discover your true authentic self, you will no longer do little petty things just because they look good to other people or they sound good to other people or the environment, because you know who you are and where you're going. Your authenticity will help you become a better planner of your time, and you will manage your time much better. I hope this is helping somebody today. Let's see if we can do the last one and then we can part. Number 5, I'm calling this number 5, and I'm calling it authenticity and executive presence. Now, on another day, I'm going to talk about executive presence as a separate podcast because it's too important to just swallow up in here. But for today's class and for today's purposes, I will briefly touch on it because it is relevant to what we are doing. Now, to be authentic, a lot of people have thought, okay, well, you're just going to be yourself and act anyhow and do whatever you want. You're just being authentic. You're being free to be yourself. Come on, be yourself. Life is short. Live a little, and on all those phrases. At the same time, you must understand that your executive presence is just as important for your success. And so you will not compromise your executive presence just so you can be your true self, which is your authentic self. So you must learn the ability to strike a balance between being your true authentic self and maintaining your executive presence. Because in fact, at the end of the day, when you have mastered and have become greater in your executive presence, you can even become more real and more genuine and more authentic and get away with it and still keep your respect. you will find that the most accomplished people in society will be their real self, and people will still laugh and accept them and love them because their executive presence has already taken precedence in their lives and they've already made that mark. Whereas if you push that down and you just focus on, what if you have a clowning personality? So now you're just clowning around before you establish your authority in that field, and nobody will ever take you seriously. So you must strike the balance. So you might be wondering, all right, David, you're not going to talk about executive presence today, but you've already mentioned it, so you might as well give it to me. So I will give you a little bit of a brief about what executive presence is, but on another separate podcast, I will go into detail and really give us a podcast, a detailed podcast, or a podcast on what executive presence really is. So what is executive presence? I call it is the presence that you have to be able to inspire and lead people. It is the ability to have a personality as well as a character that inspires and helps you to lead other people. And so I will give you very few, in fact, I'll give you seven. Let's give you seven. Seven keys that will show you whether you have executive presence or not. And when I do the actual podcast on the subject, I'll break them down further. But for the sake of today, let's look at these seven. Number one, trust. Can people trust you? Can they trust what is coming out of your mouth when they look at you? Can they trust you? Executive presence requires that you are trustworthy. I'd likable to that. I could separate it, but I'll put them together. Are you likable when you stand in front and talking to people? If people don't have a liking towards you, most likely they will switch off. If they feel they can't trust you, most likely they will switch off. So that's the first aspect. Number two, for executive presence, because we're talking about as being authentic while returning your executive presence. So what is executive presence? Number two characteristic of executive presence is charisma. Okay, can you communicate? Now, when I say charisma, some of you might feel intimidated. Oh, I don't do public speaking. That's not all there is to charisma. Charisma comes in different ways, and we will break this down further when I do the actual subject on executive presence. But can you make your point across in a way that a young person can understand and not be too complicated and sophisticated? As a matter of fact, if anybody cannot simplify a subject to the lowest common denominator, if you like, it means that person hasn't really fully understood that subject and they need to go study it further. A 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, my Juliana must be able to understand your concept if you have really grasped it. And if the only people who can understand your concept are the most educated, then you need to do some work on that. But I'll leave that alone. Number three, your posture or your composure. How you stand, how you present yourself, how you keep your shoulders, how you move your hands, how you fold or not fold your hands, how you maintain eye contact or not maintain eye contact. And later I will be breaking these things further down, but it's very important, your posture and your composure for your executive presence. And number four, power dressing. See, I often say that people say you cannot judge a book by its cover, but I say to you, you can. And often society judges you by your cover. Before they get to know who you really are and your personality, they will judge you based on how you look, what you do, how you sound, and what you're wearing, what you're driving to some extent, and where your office is and where you live in the world. People will judge you by your cover, whether you like it or not. And so when you stand in front of people or to lead people, make sure your shoes are clean, unless you're joining a quirky group. I don't know what quirky really means, but if you know what I mean, I'm trying to use it in the sense that if you're joining a group that doesn't care about hygiene or what you look like, but literally you must wash, clean yourself, sort yourself up, whatever it is, power dressing, dress the part. Okay, later on, when people really know who you are and you've established your authority in that setting, you can dress down and they will still respect you. But first impressions really matter. So you can be authentic, but make sure that you maintain your look. You gotta look the part. And don't overdress, don't underdress, but look the part. I'll go into detail on another day for that one. Let's see if we can move on. Number five of the executive presence characteristics is confidence. You must be confident. Confidence goes a long way. When people are listening to you or look at you and you don't feel confident about what you're doing, most likely they will not follow, especially if you're leading a team. Imagine going to surgery, to the hospital, and the doctor stands next to your bed, and he says, "I'm not very sure what I'm doing, but I'll try." I'm running out of that theater. Your confidence is absolutely important. Same way, when you stand in front for public speakers like myself and you don't sound confident, most likely you are taking away from the confidence that your listeners have in what you have to say. You must be confident when you stand up there, and which follows number 6 very nicely, which is authority, which lines up with your character. You must have authority up there. One of the things that was very common in the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ was that people said there's something about him, he teaches with authority. And that tells me that Jesus had executive presence. And so if you want to reach the masses and really be impactful, inspire, and lead, you must have authority in your subject area and in what you are saying. Number 7, you must have authority. That's number 7. We've done that. Number 7, well, let's go to number 7. That's what we did. 6 is authority. Number 7 is authenticity. You must be authentic. You must be authentic and have command in what you are doing. So your authenticity is powerful for your executive presence. Be authentic. You already know what authenticity is because we've been talking about it all the whole time today. And the last one for your executive presence is your credibility. Can we believe what you're saying on the basis of the fact that your expertise? Okay, do you really know what you're talking about? Is this material something that you know? It is a part of you. So how do you get credibility? If you're teaching in an area, you can get credibility from experience. Maybe you've worked in that industry. That gives you credibility. Or maybe you've done a course about that subject. That gives you credibility. Or maybe you are in a situation or in an environment where that's what you do, and everybody around you does that, and you experience that on a daily basis. That also gives you credibility. So why should we listen to you talk about that particular subject? Where is your credibility coming from? Very powerful, very important. So these 8 I've given you, we'll just give you an example of what executive presence is. So coming back to authenticity, as I wind up today, your authenticity is powerful. But make sure while you're being real and being yourself, you do not take away your executive presence, which I've just explained what that is. Make sure you can balance the two. If you can master the two, I would definitely be seeing you at the very top. And so that's where we're going to pack today for this podcast, the art of authenticity. So we have looked at what authenticity is. We have looked at why it is important. We've looked at how to be authentic. And we've also looked at how to be authentic without losing your executive presence. Because it's very powerful and very important that you maintain both of them. I am looking forward to seeing you at the very top before this year is over, because this is a good year. It is a year of plenty. And whatever you do, get to work. Remember, nothing just happens. You must do something in order for you to get to the top. All of us have the same amount of time. We have been given the same exact amount of time, 24 hours a day. However, some people will succeed, some people will fail. In that same 24 hours, some people will get results, some people will just complain and complain and complain. I am praying that that is not you. I will see you guys at the next podcast. I'll leave you with a little clip sharing our next transformational thinking Zambia, which is coming to Lusaka. We are coming to a city near you, by the way. The next one after Zambia is transformational thinking UK. And so you don't want to miss out on what is happening. We are determined to get everybody all the way to the very top. Stay blessed, guys. I'll see you next time on our next podcast. Ciao for now. Ciao, ciao.